Right, time for a chat. It's my first video in a long while, a few weeks actually. I want to talk about these race riots that, for want of a better word, whatever you want to call them, riots, protests, race riots, that have taken place over the death of George Floyd, a black male who had his neck leant on by Derek Chauvin and three other officers that stood by and watched and essentially discouraged people from filming. He had his neck leant on for 8 minutes, told the officer, "I can't breathe, please get off me," called for his mother, voided his bladder in the 8 minutes, and still Derek Chauvin leant on his neck while he breathed his last breaths, essentially. There have now been riots across America. Looting of targets, destruction of properties, stealing of televisions and stuff, burning down police stations. First thing I want to say is that destroying your own community in order to make some sort of political message, get some sort of point across, is null and void. You're only destroying what you, your family and your neighbours need, essentially, for now to survive. You need to organise, strategise and get a message across properly. Make yourselves organised, unionise, strategise, politicise. I understand that you're angry, but destroying your own community isn't going to happen. Isn't going to work out the way for you that you might think it will. The other point I want to make is to the people saying that these people are just animals for looting, that they're just savages, that they're just looting, because any excuse. I want to give you a bit of a history lesson. Now, I'm no history buff when it comes to civil rights, slavery, race history, essentially. But after slavery, as many of you may know, we had the Jim Crow era, which was the Martin Luther King era, the civil rights movement era, where black people were segregated, put aside, treated like second-class citizens because the institution was still racist. Now, Martin Luther King came along, many other civil rights activists came along, Malcolm X, etc., Rosa Parks. They ended technically ended that era of history, and they made black people be legally recognised as citizens. We then had redlining, which is where certain areas where you lived were redlined so you couldn't get mortgages, loans, etc., business loans, things like that. And given that most America was still pretty racist, and that American society had up to this point been segregated, they were largely black urban populations that were redlined, and this still goes on today. There are still court cases going in front of the highest American courts to this very day against banks and other such institutions that are effectively redlining urban black communities. You cannot put people in cages and then complain that they're acting like animals. It just doesn't work like that. All these people criticising, saying you should be peaceful, protest nicely. You like peaceful protests because you can ignore them. Colin Kaepernick took a knee for the flag. You criticised him for that. Poor black people who aren't Colin Kaepernick, aren't massive athletes, are looting, destruction of property, vandalising, burning down police stations. You're complaining about that. So what is it going to take for you to take the message on board and get it through your heads? A society has literally segregated people, a certain group of people, economically, made them live decades in poverty without access to mortgages, bank loans, business loans, etc., and are now complaining when they're destroying property, even though our society has literally monopolised everything. Everything. You have to pay for everything in today's modern capitalist society. So you can't do that. You can't literally make everything, chargeable and then complain that people are burning down police stations, burning down targets, looting targets, taking things that they would never have dreamed of buying in all their lives. You cannot say that it's not a legitimate form of protest when you have literally made absolutely everything unaffordable for these people. So of course they're going to destroy targets, burn property down. They're sick and tired of being treated like second-class citizens. Derek Chauvin is now up on manslaughter charges, been charged with third-degree murder, and I say good. Now bring up the other three officers, the ones who stood by and helped him restrain that man while he died. Bring them up on charges, on assistance charges as well. Because too many times we see mostly young black males being killed by police in questionable circumstances. Derek Chauvin had only been accused of allegedly forging some banknotes and checks. He died. Dylan Roof, white male, walked into a church in Charleston, shot the place up. It was primarily black worshippers, shot them all dead. Police turned up. He surrendered himself unconditionally. He was let out in handcuffs. He still breathes to this day. So why is a white shooter still alive and a black man who was allegedly forging checks, allegedly, not even proven, forging checks, he's dead? And they both offered similar levels of resistance. If you've seen the video on Facebook and other social media, which I'm sure you have, he offers no resistance. Doesn't fight, doesn't struggle, doesn't even swear. He's dead. Dylan Roof is alive. That, to me, is the embodiment of white privilege. That's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of the situation in the comment sections. I'll see you next time.